Hi friends, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Ash. Welcome to my kitchen. Today is Valentine's Day and my husband and I are going to the park for a nice picnic, and I wanted to show you everything that I'm going to be making today. So I have a few items on the menu. Of course, we need some fruit. So I have here some oranges, some strawberries, a pineapple, and this pineapple is also going to be used in a shrimp ceviche. And of course, we need some sandwiches. So I have a baguette right in back of me. We are going to be making ham, Swiss cheese sandwiches. And I bought some cupcakes, which I didn't make, but that's everything that we're gonna be making today. So let's get started on chopping our fruit. Now I am only removing part of the skin of the orange just for aesthetic purposes. I want some of that skin on, and of course I want this to be easy to eat when we go on our picnic. All right, so our oranges are done, and now I'm just going to half the strawberries. They look like little hearts when you do this, so I think that's cute, and it fits the theme that we're going for today. And some of these are really big, so I'm just quartering the really big ones and setting those aside. Oh, and I'm also removing the top part just because it's easier to eat without it. Anyone who really enjoys fruits, I think it's necessary for a picnic, but you don't need this many fruits. You can just go with 1 or 2 fruits that you would enjoy. My husband loves strawberries, and since it's Valentine's Day week, the grocery store had strawberries on sale, and that's why I bought more strawberries this time. So he's really going to enjoy these strawberries, and I love oranges, so that's mainly for me. And then this pineapple is not ripened at all, but I wanted to use it for a shrimp ceviche. Maybe it's too firm. All right, there we go. I just twisted off the top part, and then I'm just going to cut around the sides to remove that skin. And then slice the bottom as well. There we go. Okay, I'm going to throw these away and pick up my station. And then we will continue chopping this pineapple. I'm just gonna throw this away. Okay, so I am going to wipe this board just a little bit because it has some remainder of that skin. Now, when it comes to chopping a pineapple, there's always gonna be the core right here in the middle, and you just want to slice around that. So I'll start off with the sides, one at a time. Until you reach the very end. And I might have cut some of the core here on this last part, but that's okay. This core is very tough, and it's hard to chew when you eat pineapple. So remove the core, throw that out. And then for these pieces, you can slice these right in half, and then you can turn it around counterclockwise and then just start chopping those. And there you go. You have pieces of pineapple. So I'm going to set these aside here. And then for these, we're gonna use some of these for the ceviche. So what I'm going to do is chop this up a little bit more finely because I want finer pieces. And I'm being very careful here because the pineapple can tend to be very slippery. But all I did was chop those quarters into halves. And then you can slice it thinner in another half. And then you just dice them up this way. So that is gonna be for my ceviche. And then there's some left over here. So let me just chop these the same way. These are gonna be larger and I'll just put them together with this batch over here. All right. So this part's gonna be for the ceviche, and then this is our fruit for our picnic. And I have these super cute Valentine's Day bowls just from the previous years. I think they're so special. So I'm going to add all the fruits in here. Maybe create little sections for them. All right, and just like that, we have our beautiful fruit. I'm just going to put some plastic wrap over this, put it in the fridge while we work on the ceviche and the sandwiches. Don't think that I forgot about these. We're just going to snack on these throughout the week. And this is going to go into the fridge. And we'll eat them throughout the week. Now we're also going to be taking some hummus as a little side dip in case we want to, eat it with our sandwiches. So I just want to chop up some of these carrots into sticks and we can use them to dip up the hummus. I've already peeled and washed these, and all I did was slice them in half and then slice those halves into halves, and you have easy sticks. All right, so our sticks are ready. I'm gonna put these to the side and we'll package them up right now. I have this little heart. It's so cute. I saved these specifically for occasions like this. And I think I bought that from Target or the dollar store. It was very affordable. So I'm just gonna put a portion there of the carrots. And then I also wanted to slice up a yellow bell pepper, which I'm also going to be using inside of the ceviche. So I'm just gonna slice this whole thing, discard the center. And then for some of these, we're going to do the same thing as the carrots. Just slice them up into sticks like this. Put them on the side here. And then for the pepper that I'm going to use for the ceviche, I'm going to slice those into sticks, and then we're going to finely dice them. And then just pass your knife one more time just to get them very finely diced. Okay, set that to the side. And then we're going to start dicing the rest of the vegetables for our ceviche. Here I have one jalapeno, which I am going to remove the seeds from just because I don't want it that spicy. But you can leave the seeds if you want to. And that's how I remove the seeds. You can also wear gloves while you're doing this because sometimes the jalapeno spice lingers onto your fingers, and then if you touch your eyes or anywhere in your body, it can start to sting real bad. So same thing like how we did with the peppers. You just want to slice them into sticks, and then we're going to finely dice. And then go over it one more time with your knife. And then we'll set those aside. Next up is this cucumber, which I'm happy is still alive. I've had it in the fridge for maybe a little bit over a week. Now with the cucumber, you want to de-seed the middle, and I'm going to grab a spoon. You want to grab it with one hand, and then with your spoon, you want to firmly grasp it with your 2 fingertips. And then you just want to core out the seeds from the middle. Just like that. I am no expert at this, but I am trying my best. So if you could do it better, then more props to you. All right. I'm gonna throw out these seeds. Okay, and then same thing. We're just gonna slice these into sticks and then dice. Set that aside. Next is our tomato. I have 1 large Roma tomato, and I am just slicing off the top part, and then from there I will slice this in half and then just start slicing across. Set those aside and do the same thing with this other half. Set that over here. And then with these halves, you can remove the seeds, but I'm going to keep them just because I want some of that juice in the ceviche. And I slice this in half, turn it around, and then start dicing. We'll do the same thing here. Slice them into sticks, turn it around. And then we'll do the same thing with these. Now that we got a good amount of our vegetables chopped, I'm going to start adding this into a bowl. That way we have more space on our cutting board and we can continue to chop the rest of our ingredients. I'm gonna add it to this bowl here. Now the pineapples, I think I'm going to, actually I'll leave them exactly the way that they are. I think I'm pretty happy with this size here. But if you want it more finely diced, then just pass your knife over it one more time. And that's gorgeous. I'm gonna set this aside and then wipe my board down a little bit because it is a little bit slippery from all the juices of the vegetables that we've been chopping. Wipe my knife down carefully, and then we continue. All right, so next thing that we're going to chop is a little bit of this jumbo red onion. You don't need the whole thing, so I'm just gonna slice off a little section here and then remove that outer layer skin, and then you should be left with this. And then I want to remove some of that very strong oniony taste. So what I'm gonna do is put that in a little bowl. You wanna fill up a little bowl with some ice and water and then just let the diced onions sit in there for a little bit, and it'll just remove some of that strong onion taste. All right, so I have my bowl of water here. And then I'm gonna start slicing this. So we'll start with slicing all the way through, making sure to leave a little bit of space here. And then you wanna rotate it and carefully slice through this way. Be very careful here. We're gonna do that 3 times, and then we'll just start slicing. And then with this end part, you'll just slice it with your knife, and it's gonna be very rough chops, but that's okay. And that's it. You can dice it a little bit more if you want it more finer, but this is exactly how I want it. And then I'm just gonna add this to my bowl of water. Okay, setting this aside, and I'm gonna go wash my hands. All right, so next up is to chop our cilantro, our washed cilantro. And I prefer to remove the stems from this. So I just do a rough chop there. And then with the leaves, let me set this to the side. What I like to do with the leaves is roll them up towards me. And this will give me just an easier surface to work with when I'm slicing through. So grab your knife and firmly grasp onto it with your index and thumb finger. And then we're just going to hold our hand into a C shape firmly on the cilantro. Papi, my dog heard someone outside. And then we'll start slicing through. Carefully moving your hands as you chop all the way towards the end. And then that was just a rough chop. Here, we're going to continue slicing with our knife the opposite way, just to get a finer dice. And just like that, we have our chopped cilantro. I'm gonna add it to our bowl here. You can add as much or as little as you'd like. I know some people don't prefer cilantro. If you don't like cilantro, then try at least to add some type of herb in there, like maybe some parsley, just to give it that herby flavor that a good cilantro always has. Sorry, good ceviche always has. And I think that our onions are good to go. So I'm just gonna drain these, remove the ice, and then add the onion into our bowl. I absolutely love doing this because the onion comes out very nice and crisp too. All right, once you add all of that in, let me show you what our bowl is looking like up close. It's looking so beautiful. I love the contrast of the colors. We have our pineapple, our purple onion, our tomatoes, our jalapeños are in there too, the cucumbers. And now all we need is to add our shrimp and our lime. Now for the shrimp, I'm deciding to blanch these just because I want them all the way cooked. And normally you would cook the shrimp in lime juice, but we don't have lots of time for the shrimp to settle into the lime juice, and that's another reason why I prefer blanching it right now. But here I have jumbo shrimp. They're about this big, and it's close to a pound. I believe there's like 14 shrimp in here. I already deveined and cleaned them, and I have a pot of water here that is boiling, and these are just going to take a few seconds to a minute to cook, and then we'll remove them. And I have a pot here with water and ice, and they're gonna go directly into that ice bath. And what that is gonna do is just shock the shrimp, so that way it won't continue cooking. You can see the shrimp is starting to change color, and you don't want to overcook it here because it can get very chewy. Now, once it looks like this, the ice bath it goes. All right, so in case you want to know, I counted a total of 17 shrimps. And before I blanched these, I weighed it out and it was about 0.88 pounds. So very close to a pound there, in case you want to follow the recipe exactly to the T. All right, so now that these shrimps are nice and chilled from our ice bath, I'm just going to slice them through into bite-sized pieces. You can leave them as chunky or as diced as you want. I'm gonna leave some bigger pieces and then some smaller pieces. And I can tell here that the shrimp, some of these are not all the way cooked. And I think that's fine because overall, I don't want the shrimp to be too chewy. And the lime juice is going to finish cooking these. So into the bowl it goes. And that looks so pretty. I am so obsessed with how this looks. And I'm going to add the juice of 2 limes. I feel like I might need more lime, so let me juice up another lime and add it here. These limes are rock solid. I couldn't find really good limes at the grocery store. So I just have to take the time and soften them up a little bit. Okay, I'm just gonna give this a mix. All right, guys, we are almost done. What's left is just to season this with salt to taste. I'm doing 2 pinches of coarse kosher salt. And I want to add a little bit of extra virgin olive oil. Just a touch, like that much. Maybe about a teaspoon worth, maybe a teaspoon and a half. And then I also want some black pepper. I love a good amount of black pepper. And I think if I was using a measuring spoon for that, black pepper, I think that was about half a teaspoon worth. Just because it's so small. It looks like a lot, but I think that's about half a teaspoon worth. And then garlic. You can use fresh garlic too, but I'm gonna prefer powdered garlic for today. And that was maybe about a 1/4 teaspoon to half of a teaspoon. And then we're just gonna mix that up. It looks so beautiful. I have not made ceviche before, but I grew up eating ceviche a lot. My dad would always make a ceviche almost every Saturday, to be honest. And just from seeing him do it, I kind of got the gist of it. And also I look up recipes sometimes. If I'm not familiar with them, I'll look them up. I'll see it a few times just so I can get familiar with it. And then I'm like, okay, I can do this. So I just love the colors of this though. And you can add more lime if you want it to be a little bit more sour, if you want it to be more juice. Oh, and avocado would also go perfectly in here too. Just imagine serving this up as an appetizer if you're hosting some guests at home. Oh my God. Beautiful. All right, so let me put some plastic wrap over this. Actually, let me taste it. I want to pair this with some of these yellow corn tortilla chips. I think they go perfect together. And they have a little bit of sea salt in them, so let's see how it tastes. Mmm. I think that's perfect. The pineapple goes so well with this. I love a combination of sweet and salty. If you want it a little bit more saltier, I would just add a little bit more salt, but honestly, I think it's perfect on its own. Let me try one more time, just to be sure. Grab from the bottom there. This one's nice and juicy. I love it. Wow, I'm obsessed with this. This is so, so good. All right, it's safe to say that this is done. So I'm just gonna wipe it clean a little bit. And then we'll just wrap this up with plastic over the top. All right, friends, I'm so excited. It's time for the very last and final item to prep, which are the sandwiches. So I have out some mayonnaise, mustard. I am going to add some sun-dried tomatoes. And then we have Swiss cheese. And this is a sweet ham, both from the deli. We also have our salt, pepper, garlic powder, olive oil, and some arugula. What else do we need? We need some oregano. Love oregano on my sub. I only have the big thing of oregano, so we have oregano here, and then I have my baguette right here. I would have made the bread for today, but since it was kind of like a spontaneous little picnic we had planned, and making bread does take, you know, it's a little labor of love, so I was like, let me just make it easy for myself this time. And there's nothing wrong with buying bread from the store, but if you make your own, that's good too. So I am going to cut this in half. And then I'm going to split it open. Now, I personally like to remove a little bit of the bread from the inside, just because when you have a lot of fillings in here, it could be pretty hard to bite into. And then you're there chewing and chewing and chewing and chewing, but these are delicious to munch on. I love bread. Okay. And okay, so I'm gonna do a layer of mayonnaise and a layer of mustard. Let me grab a spreading knife. Let's do the mustard first. Do mustard on both sides. Trying to get my hair out of my face. I cannot have my hair down when I'm in the kitchen prepping or cooking anything, just because it's my biggest pet peeve when it's in my face. Anyways, let's put some mayonnaise. Okay, so that gets a nice spread all the way around. we're done with this, we're gonna set this to the side. And then from here, we're gonna add our ham and cheese. We're gonna do a few slices at a time, kind of layering them together. All right, just like that. You can add as much as you want, but I think that's enough. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, about 6 slices. Okay, then we'll go in with our cheese. And I absolutely love the combination of sweet ham with Swiss cheese. I grew up in Miami, so there's a lot of Cuban sandwiches in the Cuban bakeries, and it's one of my favorite sandwiches ever. It's also one of my husband's favorite too. I can't eat much pork, but I love the combination of Swiss cheese and ham, especially on a sweetbread. So good. So there goes 1, 2, 3, 4 slices of cheese. And I don't know about you, but I always count things when I'm making it. I don't know why I do that, but I just do. All right. So here we have our sun-dried tomatoes. I'm gonna grab something to get it with. I have these very fancy kitchen tongs, or whatever these are, but just use a fork if you don't have it. It's totally fine. And these are gorgeous. They're gonna add some oil to our sub too. So natural flavoring there, just from the sun-dried tomatoes. And this, which one did I buy? This is a Mediterranean blend. It's julienne cut with herbs. I'm sorry if my sentences cut off here and there. That's, you know, I try to improve the way that I speak. It's been a goal of mine this year to improve that part of me, but I don't know why I just cut my sentences into parts, and that's just the way I talk. But that's okay. All right, so we have ham, cheese, sun-dried tomatoes, and then we're gonna add some arugula. But to this arugula, I want to spice it up a little bit. I absolutely love arugula for its peppery taste. I think it's so delicious. But what makes it even more delicious is to mix it with some olive oil, salt, pepper, a little bit of lime juice. So good. All right, so I have a big handful of arugula there. And then I'm gonna do a good drizzle of olive oil. To this, we're gonna season lightly with some coarse kosher salt. And then some black pepper, not too much because it already has that peppery taste. Some garlic powder. And then I have some lemon here that's already been cut. I save this in my fridge whenever I don't use up a whole entire lemon or any ingredient for the most part. So there's still some juice in this. I'm going to save this, and then I can just use it in whatever else I need. Okay, now to this, I'm just going to mix this around lightly with my hands. And you'll see the arugula starts to absorb all the oil and lemon, and it starts to shrink in size. That's completely normal. And then we just add it to our sub. Ooh, my husband probably won't like all this arugula, but I told him I was putting it in there and he said that he would try it, so this is him trying it. I'll just put probably more arugula on my side and then less here on this side. That is just fine. And very last thing I want to add is just a bit of red wine vinegar. You could see I barely even have any left, but I just want to add a touch of this to give it a little bit more acidity. And then we will top this with some oregano. And if you have Parmesan cheese, add Parmesan cheese. I do not, but man, Parmesan cheese would be perfect on this. And if you want, you could even top it just a smidge more with some salt. And maybe even a smidge more of pepper if you want, but this is our beautiful sandwich. All right, friends, we are done, and this is everything that we have prepped today.